Good day, everybody, and welcome back to Big and Bad Sports Talk. Today, I'm going to be going over the top 5 Boston Bruins prospects I expect to see make a big difference by the end of the season, as well as a couple dark horse prospects that you might be able to see in a Boston Bruins uniform by the end of the season. Let's go. Okay, number one on the list of Boston Bruins prospects that I expect to make a big difference this year, and this is the highly touted prospect of Jack Studnicka. He's listed at 6'1", 178 pounds. He was originally drafted in the second round of 2017 by the Boston Bruins. He played in the OHL for the Oshawa Generals and Niagara Ice Dogs, where he put up just under a point per game there. He played in the World Juniors for Team Canada. He played in 5 games there. He registered 4 points. Where he really stands out is down in Providence this past season, where he put up 48 points, 60 games, which allowed him to be called up to the Boston Bruins midway through the season, where he played in 2 games and he registered 1 assist. He also played in a handful of games for the Bruins in the playoffs this past year in the bubble, where he really didn't seem out of place, although he didn't put up any points. I don't expect this player to not be on the roster this year. I can see him playing throughout the whole year, maybe a couple healthy scratches, but I can see him playing throughout the whole season. This player is highly skilled, drives the puck hard to the net, and he's pretty nifty with the puck too as well. This player is going to be on the Bruins for a long time to come, especially with David Krejci's contract ending at the end of the year. They're sure the Bruins aren't going to want to re-sign him, especially after letting Chara walk. So I don't think there's any kind of loyalty towards players. It's just the way business works in the NHL. So I could see the Bruins going after this season with the trio of centers being Patrice Bergeron, Charlie Coyle, and Jack Studnicka. This player is also, I would consider him to be a dark horse for the Calder Trophy this upcoming season. So he'll be an interesting player to watch. I'm excited to see him out there. And we're going to move on to number 2 on the list. And I hope you're enjoying. So stay tuned. All right, so let's move on to the second player on this Boston Bruins list of prospects that I expect to make a big difference this year on the Bruins. That would be that of Trent Frederic, the 6'2", 208-pound forward. Has played in 17 games for the Boston Bruins in the past couple of years. He was drafted in the first round, 29th overall in 2016. The Bruins acquired that pick from San Jose along with Sean Corrali back in 2015 when they sent Martin Jones to San Jose. It looks like that trade is actually paying off for the Bruins quite well, considering that Martin Jones really hasn't done much for San Jose other than his first year he was there when he brought him to the Cup final. The Bruins still have 2 players on their rosters, and Sean Corrali, who's scored a numerous amount of big goals for them over the past couple of years, and they have a budding prospect in Trent Frederic coming up right now. The problem with Trent Frederic right now is I don't know if the Bruins are going to want to play him all year. I know that he will be prorated to 40 games if he plays in 27 of them this season, which will expose him to the Seattle franchise when they have their expansion draft coming up. I don't see a lot of Bruins players that I can see Seattle wanting to go after other than Trent Frederic. I mean, they'll expose John Moore and like Chris Wagner's and players of that nature, but I think if Seattle was going after one of these players, it would probably be going after Trent Frederic, just based off his age and how young he is and the potential that this player can bring to a team, especially with his physical nature. He won't put up a lot of points. He's not that big of a flashy player, as evidenced in his first 17 games in the NHL where he's put up 0 points. But he's more known as a physical presence and more of a fourth-line player at this point in his career. So, I don't know. I expect him to be on the roster for sure, but, well, I don't expect him to be on there for the full season, though. So, now we're going to move on to number 3. Now we're moving into defensemen. So, these are the big guys that I expect to make a difference this year, so hang in there. So number 3 on the list of Bruins prospects I expect to make a difference this year is that of a left shot defenseman. The Bruins seem to be in a big need for those types of players this year, and I think at the beginning of it they're going to be giving a lot of these guys a good shot to see what they are, or maybe dangle them as trade bait. But the first one I expect to be playing for the Bruins this year would be that of Jakub Zboril. He was drafted in the first round, 13th overall in that infamous 2015 draft, where the Bruins had 3 picks back to back to back. He was the first of the 3. But we really haven't seen much of him since he was drafted. I know Don Sweeney's been taking a lot of heat for that draft, considering that only one of them has really made a big difference for the Bruins, and that would be Jake DeBrusk. But this year, I think the Bruins want to see what this player can bring to the table. It's kind of a mystery what he can bring to the table. I know he was decently touted in his draft here. That's why he went in the first round. But I think the biggest knock on Jacob Zaboral would be his skating. It hasn't really been the best, and they've always said that. Even in his draft year, his skating isn't really the best. But I know the past year, the coaches in Providence, Jay Leach, has been screaming praises for this player and his development. I guess he's a little bit of a late bloomer, but I guess we're going to find out this year on the Bruins, see what he can bring to the table. I don't expect this player to bring up a lot of points, but you never know, right? So it's a new season. Maybe the player's motivated, especially since he's given a chance to play on the Boston Bruins this year. And who knows? Maybe he's just playing for a fresh start somewhere else too. Like I said, like the Bruins, I know have a plethora of left shot defensemen that they want to see what they can bring this year. And the Bruins might end up using him as a trade piece later on down the road, maybe towards the trade deadline this year, to see if they can get a better player to play on that left side. Other than that, this player isn't really that flashy. So we'll move on to number 4 in this list, and stay tuned. Moving on to number 4, this 18th overall pick drafted in 2017 is Urho Vakanainen. This player is a bit of an enigma as he's been a highly touted prospect. He's described as a very smart two-way forward who's good at making quick decisions and putting up points, but I really haven't seen that while he's been playing in Providence, where he's put up the same amount of points in the past 2 years, and he's kind of really taken a step back, where he's only put up 14 points in 50 games when he put up that same amount of points in 30 the year prior. Just like Jacob Zaboral, Bruins are going to want to see what this player can bring on that left side. I think there's only a spot for one of these guys by the end of the season, and this player has also been tied up in trade rumors this past offseason as well. He is the Bruins' technically top defensive prospect on this team. I know that when they were going after Oliver Ekman-Larsson back before the start of free agency, he was probably that one player that was going back to Arizona. I know they keep dangling this player, but we'll see as the season goes on. Maybe this player will step it up this year, just like Jacob Zaboral. He's got a chance to prove it on an NHL roster, and there seems to be a lot of competition on that left side. So we'll see what Urho Vakanainen can bring this year, and we're going to move on to number 5 right now. So stay tuned. Number 5 on this list was drafted in the first round in 2015 as 15th overall. This player is Zach Senyshyn. Once again, a part of that infamous 2015 draft where Don Sweeney takes a lot of heat. And this player was taken as definitely a reach in that draft, especially considering the players like Matt Barzal and Matt Connor were taken pretty much immediately after him. So I think this season is a bit of a make or break season for him. It's kind of weird because he was definitely a pretty good goal scorer when he played in the OHL, when he was in the juniors, and then came to Providence and kind of fell off. Like, he wasn't really put up that much points. He hasn't really impressed that much. Like I said, he was a bit of a reach even for being a first-round pick. But it's weird because he comes to Boston. He's played in 6 games for Boston where he's got 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points. And before he got injured last year, he was playing on that third line with Charlie Coyle, and he was starting to get some good chemistry going there. I was actually kind of impressed with the way he was playing. I think many Bruins fans were too as well, if they can remember. And this year, my expectations for Zach Senyshyn, I expect him to play in a couple games, but I don't see him playing very much this year, especially because that forward group is pretty deep right now. With the addition of Craig Smith, I think the only time you'll probably see Zach Senyshyn is right before David Pastrnak steps back into the lineup, because there'll be an opening for him. But outside of that, I expect him to be moved on to another team next year. Honestly, I think this player is in need of a fresh start, especially with all the pressure that's been put on him by Bruins fans because he was drafted in that first round. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens with this player. It's going to be an interesting year, especially with that taxi squad that the Bruins have, and you never know with COVID, players might be sitting, so you might need to play this player a little bit more than you probably want to. But we'll see. That's not my number 5 pick. Now I'm going to move on to one dark horse right after this. So hold on, one more to go. All right, so last prospect. This is the dark horse pick that I expect to see on the taxi squad this year with the Boston Bruins, and that is the undrafted defenseman listed at 5'8", and that is Jack Aiken. This player, he's kind of reminds me of Torrey Krug, honestly. I don't see this player making the team or playing in any games, honestly, but I think based off of injuries, I can see this player actually contributing and making an impact. These young undrafted defensemen that the Bruins keep pulling up, or just even smaller, shifty defensemen that the Bruins have, like Matt Grzelcyk, Torrey Krug, for instance, they seem to work on this Bruins team. They seem to seem to bring that energy that the Bruins really do need on that back end. So I think that is a dark horse pick. I can see that Jack Aiken actually making a difference this year. Maybe not in Boston, but for sure down in Providence. I can see this player just opening a lot of people's eyes going forward. So that's it for all my prospect picks today, and I hope everybody enjoyed watching. If you liked it, like, subscribe, and I'll be making some more, like I said earlier in the first video. So stay tuned. If you have any suggestions where you want me to like talk about certain things, it's all Bruins, so no other teams, unfortunately. So anyways, I enjoy doing this, and we'll catch you next video. Ciao.